Well, the federal government will introduce legislation today to strip funding from childcare centres who fail to meet safety standards. But a push to install CCTV at 17,000 centres nationwide has many cybersecurity experts very worried because of how easy it is for cameras to be hacked with minimal security. It comes amid reports this morning that child predators are using fake working with children checks at local sport clubs, attempting to gain access to children. For their take, let's bring in Housing Minister Claire O'Neil and National Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie. Welcome to you both. Claire, we'll start with you. There is, of course, so much more to do beyond today's legislation. 3 weeks ago, the Education Minister, we had him on the program, Jason Clary, said that the working with children's check reforms can't happen soon enough. Yet we understand the Attorneys General's meeting to fix them isn't until next month. I'm just wondering, am I missing something here? Why the wait to next month? Can't they all just get on a Zoom call and get this thing done?
Well, Mon, the work on this is being undertaken every day since these allegations emerged. And this is right at the top of our government's agenda. You mentioned the legislation that will be introduced today. We've been working in a really bipartisan way with the opposition on making sure that this gets a really fast passage through the Parliament. The working with children checks are, of course, a part of this, and the Attorneys General across the country are working together in a way that's actually really unusual for the states and the Commonwealth to make sure that we fast-track this. So that meeting next month will be to finalise some of that work. It is already underway. It's really critical that we get on top of this. I've got a daughter who's in childcare at the moment. I'm desperately concerned about this, not just as a politician, but as a parent. And I'm really pleased to see the Education Minister bringing forward some legislation today that is going to have incredibly harsh repercussions for childcare centres that do not properly protect our children.
OK, but just on this meeting, why next month? Why can't it happen now?
Well, the government's announced that it will happen, Mon, and we are working with the states and territories to be able to put this in place. And the Attorneys General meeting doesn't mean that no one's thinking or talking or working on this up until that meeting. It's just when the ministers themselves will sit together and do it. We've announced that this is going to happen. We're going to do it very quickly, and that work is underway right now. OK. Bridget, how's the Coalition going to help to get these reforms done?
Well, the nightmare continues, Mon, for Australian parents with more allegations, not just of sexual abuse, but physical abuse and the working for children fake IDs, throughout our sports clubs and not just our childcare systems. So obviously the Liberal and the National Party are working hard with the government to address this. But as you raised in your opening comments, it's not just the putting off of the Attorney General's meeting. The education ministers themselves aren't meeting till October. And it's not like we've had a lot to do since the May 3rd election. We've only brought Parliament back yesterday. And so I would be asking, given so much of the regulatory and enforcement of this actually sits with local and state authorities, that we get them together to urgently address this. And as Claire said, we are working as bipartisan as we can, but this one piece of legislation won't solve the issues. And as the story you mentioned with the concerns around CCTV, there's a whole raft of measures that we need to get in place to protect our children.
Yes, there certainly is. And of course, the Royal Commission happened 10 years ago. The working with children's checks was 10 years ago, and those recommendations were not acted on by either side, by either the Coalition or Labor. So this falls on both of you. All right, let's move on now. And 4 One Nation senators have turned their back on an Indigenous acknowledgement to country when Parliament opened yesterday. Bridget, we can actually see you in one of the photos there as it happens. What was the feeling like in the room when that happened?
Well, I obviously, as you can see from the photos, didn't even know they'd done it till I read it in the paper. The thing about yesterday was it is constitutionally how we convene our democracy. Our Parliament is full of people who have very diverse views. It's appropriate to have a welcome to country at significant events like the opening of Parliament. But we have people in both our chambers who walk out when the prayers are being said every morning. We've got senators who don't think the King should be our constitutional head of state. We've got senators who yesterday held up placards, anti-Israel placards. Meanwhile, we've got Jewish students being harassed in our community. So the problem actually occurs, when you can't express different views respectfully, like we saw with The Voice. If you voted no, you were called a racist. If you support Australian Jewish people who don't support Israel, think it's okay to bomb synagogues in this country and to harass Jewish businesses and Jewish students. So the problem in a liberal democracy like ours is when we can't express different views appropriately.
Okay, so you were supportive of them having the right to turn their back?
Well, I can only speak for myself, Mon. Obviously, I think for significant events like the opening of Parliament, the government determines the ceremonial day, and we had Welcome to Country in both chambers, and you know, I listened respectfully, as is my job as a senator for the great state of Victoria.
Yeah, and there were plenty of acknowledgements there to the Westminster system, Claire. We had the shooting of cannons. It was all about pomp and ceremony. The acknowledgement of country, you know, of course, has come under criticism as being perhaps reserved, should be reserved for big, meaningful moments, that they could be being overdone. That has been a criticism in the past. But the opening of Parliament, it's a big deal. The Prime Minister described it as like a hand warmly extended. What was your feeling about these 4 One Nation members turning their backs?
I thought it was disrespectful and rude and childish. Whatever your views about the Welcome to Country, we've got First Nations people who have been invited to come to our Parliament to extend that hand of friendship and invite us, you know, and talk about that 65,000 years of heritage that they bring to our beautiful, great country of Australia. And to treat people that way on the first day of Parliament, I think it was absolutely appalling. What I do find is a bit disappointing that we're focusing on all these moments of conflict and difference from yesterday, when actually that first day of Parliament is a really beautiful occasion for people like Bridget and I to come together, even though we've got very different views about the future of our country, to come together and say we care about our country, we care about our democracy, and for all of us to recommit as members of Parliament to work for our citizens every day that we have the privilege of serving them in this place. And that's really what yesterday was about. It was a really beautiful day where we celebrated the strength of our great democracy, one of the strongest democracies in the world, and that's the bit that I'm focusing on.
All right, and a good thing to focus on too, Claire. Thank you. You've both got a busy day ahead. Bridget, Claire, thank you.